Brian Cooper was there at 2 out. He tried to deck Paul Townend with a little uppercut. Paul Townend weaves out of the way. He goes back on again. Like, it's absolute box office television. Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Racing for our Dublin Racing Festival preview. I'm Andrew Blair-White and I'm joined by Josh Stacey today for what should be a brilliant weekend's racing at Leopardstown. Josh, how are you feeling going into it?
I'm feeling very well. I'm happy that the first video went down so well. I think we got something like 115 likes, so if you could smash that, if we could break 100 likes every video, that would be great. So if you do enjoy this video, please make sure you do that and subscribe if you haven't already. I've been under the illusion everywhere I go when you go to the races, everyone wears shuffles, and I was under the illusion that it was racing uniform. And then I decided to get one for Christmas. I was bought one actually for Christmas and changed my life. I live in them now. And so I thought if we couldn't go to the races, because we've been there the last 2 years, why not dress for the races, which is why I've got this on. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Plenty of Cheltenham clues. I know it sounds silly to be going into a meeting like this thinking about Cheltenham, but it's almost the Trials Day weekend, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's the main time you're going to see the Grade 1 horses out before Cheltenham. You know, not all of them will run, but a fair few of them will. As you can see, I haven't dressed up for the occasion. Josh hasn't been to too much Irish racing. Irish racing a lot more casual. And my brief few stints over at Cheltenham to the November meeting and the March Festival, everyone seems to dress up to the nines. You get a cold, murky day at Leopardstown or Thurles or something like that. You wouldn't see too many of those rocking around, that's for sure.
You can pull off one of those long coats, though.
I can, but it does slightly look like I'm taking somebody to the funeral parlour, unfortunately. But look, you know, I would try and dress up a bit for the Dublin Racing Festival. But anyway, it should be fantastic. Some great horses running on the weekend and some, as you say, vital clues. I know, you know, you don't want to focus too much in on Cheltenham, but when you're getting so close, it's hard not to get a bit giddy. You know, we're only 6 weeks away, and these are some fantastic Grade 1 races, and hopefully they're well represented, and we have some very informative and good results.
Absolutely. There's 2 days of action, a Saturday and Sunday, and both days there's Grade 1s coming out of its arse. It's ridiculous. Some good racing over here as well that unfortunately we won't get to preview because the racing is so good in Ireland, and we're going to dedicate this episode purely to the Dublin Racing Festival. But if you are having a bet over the weekend, gamble responsibly first and foremost, but do let us know down in the comments what you are on. We'll start off. The first race is the 2 mile 6 novices hurdle, the Grade 1. This is an awkward race, isn't it? It's over 2 miles and 6 furlongs. Is it a Ballymore trial? Is it a Bartlett trial? Plenty of horses that are in the betting for both. I really fancy the favourite here, Gaillard du Mesnil. I think that I don't think he's just got more pace than Statler. I do think there's going to be plenty of clues for Kira, Ashdale, Bob, Holy Macapony, Statler, like I mentioned. They're going to be Albert Bartlett types. But Gaillard du Mesnil, I think he's just got too much pace, and that could prove devastating. What do you think?
Yeah, as you say, very hard to know, because at the moment I'd be surprised if Mullins was to run Gaillard du Mesnil and Statler against each other. He might end up having his hand forced because the options other than that aren't massive, so unless he wants to go straight to the festival with one of them, I don't think he'll want to do that. I think they might end up having to run against each other on sufferance. Look, in years gone by, it's proven to be more of a Bartlett trial than a Ballymore trial, and I just thought Gaillard du Mesnil was a bit soft in the finish behind Holy Macapony on his Irish debut at Punchestown. Now, I know the ground was desperate that day, but I'd just be a little bit concerned he might be outstayed. He didn't come off the bridle last time at Leopardstown, so we weren't quite sure conclusively about stamina. He was so far ahead of those rivals. Now, that form has been franked with Mr. Incredible winning midweek for Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore. He does bring the class angle to the race. I just am not sure about the 2-6 for him. I quite like Statler going forward to the Bartlett. I think he'd have a massive chance if he rocked up here. And I'd give another chance to Ashdale Bob each way. I don't know where he was taking off in that Lawlers and Ace race. He took off around 20 strides before the hurdle when coming down at the second. It was one of the most bizarre jumps I've seen in a while. But his form before that, beating wide receiver, that maiden hurdles looked to be very good at Navan, and obviously won the race that Holy Macapony and Fighter Allen pulled up in at Navan just before Christmas as as well. I think he brings solid enough credentials each way at around 10-1 for each way players. But I'd be more on the Statler camp than Gallard de Menil over this 2-6 trip.
Do you think Holy Macapone's been overlooked potentially in the betting? I know last time he was nowhere near what he showed beforehand, but if he got back to his best, do you think he could confirm the form with a favourite?
Yeah, very hard to know. I thought for a while he was being overlooked in the Bartlett market, in this market, but he's almost turned into a bit of a wise guy's horse the last week or so, I think. Everyone suddenly is thinking that he's this world beater, maybe because the Gallard de Menil form looks so strong now. But you still have that in the back of your mind. He did stop to a walk, in a matter of strides at Navan, and Fighter Allen did the exact same for Willie Mullins, and an awful lot of people, myself included, expected him to win midweek at Thurles, and he couldn't get the job done. So I don't think it's just quite as easy as that. I'd say Connections would be happy enough if he ran a solid race and came third or fourth, and they could work on that maybe going forward to the Bartlett.
Yeah, I'm particularly keen on Fakira in the Bartlett, so I'm going to be seeing how he gets on. We'll move on to the next race, the 2-mile Dublin Chase. Chacun Pour Soi, 4-9. Do you think any horse should be 4-9 to beat Min? I know he should win, but if he doesn't turn up, I think that's an incredibly short price, given how he can be fragile sometimes.
Yeah, look, I think that's based off what he's done this year, and Willie Mullins came out midweek and said he's had a clear run with him, so touch wood that stays the same for the remainder of this season. You'd want to see him do what he did last year to Maine. That form ended up looking rock solid. He's looked class this year, especially over course and distance at Christmas. And not a race to really have a bet in, to be honest. Some of these big races, you don't necessarily need a bet in to enjoy good horses. And I'd like to hope Min will run another gallant race, but I think for the good of the game's perspective, you really want Chacun Pour Soi to put in another magic performance.
Yeah, although I do think Chacun Pour Soi, I'm leaning towards him in the Champion Chase at the moment. He has a different feeling for me this year compared to last year, because before Punchestown, when he beat Defi de Soy, I had a conversation with Patrick Mullins, and he said that Chacun Pour Soi is a really, really good horse. And I backed him for the Arkle, for the Champion Chase last year at 50-1, and I was following him all the way in. I think he was 11-8 or 9-4 a couple of days before, and then didn't run. So not having that big financial incentive, it does tame my bolshiness with regards to backing him. And I think 4-9, it's you can't possibly back Chacun given the fact that he's up against Min Notebook at 4-9, and I wouldn't even include it in multiples if I'm being perfectly honest. We'll move on to the Irish Arkle, obviously the novice equivalent over 2 miles, the Grade 1. I don't really have an opinion in this. You put a tweet out in midweek saying that you didn't think the Fab would run. Looks like that's going to happen.
Yeah, look, it's hard to know, but it's real dependent on the Leopardstown chase track. The next couple of days are meant to be quite dry, and the chase track does dry an awful lot very quickly. I don't think they'll run the favourite on yielding ground, personally speaking. Yielding ground in Ireland, you don't really see it that much in England. It's probably good to soft over in England, but yielding ground, it might be on the sharp side for him, especially over 2 miles this close to Cheltenham. I thought Captain Guinness, he'll certainly run on yielding ground. Look, he's got an each way chance. I think at 10-1 he's overpriced. Look, if Energumene, the favourite, does run, he has an awful lot to find, and he probably wouldn't reverse the form of that Nace run, but he might get a little bit closer. And I don't like that form from Christmas at all. The Franco de Port, Starboard Star, Felix Stagey, I thought that was a messy race. Black Bow fell early, and Felix Stagey ran a very strange race at that. I don't think you could be backing any of them with too much confidence. So Captain Guinness may be an each way alternative to the favourite if you're not really willing to get stuck in at odds on. Yeah,
I think it's just a race to see who finishes second to Shishkin at the festival, isn't it?
Well, I know plenty of wise guys over in Ireland think this Energumene's really, really good, but I can't see it myself. I really can't see it.
Well, what do you think they're seeing him?
I think they're just seeing that, it's the jumping. He does jump electric, to be fair, but he won at Naas really impressively. But you have to remember this time last year that Cashback won that race at Naas very impressively from the front, bowl jumping, beating 0-10, who's a graded horse, by 10 lengths. And then he obviously was an absolute no-show in the Arkle. So I'm not saying for a second, I'm not comparing, before people get on my back, that I'm comparing an Energumene to Cashback. But I think he still has an awful lot to get to Shishkin. Like surely Shishkin's going to win the Arkle.
Like Shishkin, not much value in his price in the Arkle, but if you look back at Nicky Henderson, he's a Sprinter Sacra Altior, he looks the next in line. An Ergamine wouldn't get near an Altior or a Sprinter Sacra in their novice days, and if Shishkin is as good as that, then you've got to think that he's an absolute cert for the festival. And we'll move on to the 2 mile handicap chase. I actually quite like one in this each way. I quite like a Wave of the Sea for Joseph O'Brien off 133. Now I looked at this race and I thought, which one of these will likely go for the Grand Annual? And I thought quite a fair few of them would. Which ones need to get their handicap mark up to get to Cheltenham? And I think a Wave of the Sea would be one of those off 133. Another one would be the Shunter of 132, who could exploit his chase mark. I know it's 132 and his hurdle was 133, but he was so impressive in the Greatwood. I just think a Wave of the Sea. He won the juvenile race last year, albeit not particularly fairly, given the fact that Aspire Tower came down. I just think 133 is lenient, decent chase form without being anything special, and wouldn't surprise me if he cropped up. I just think that he could win this and then go on to be bottom weight, or maybe not bottom weight, but run in a Grand Annual at the festival. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I could back that up. I'm not so sure about him over 2 miles. I think he might be a long-term plot for the Galway Plate. I just think for a while now I've thought he may need a step up in trip, but he's got good form around Leopardstown. There's no getting away from that, and there's no getting away from the fact that he'll win a big handicap chase off a mark of 133. He was a great, as you said, he was a Grade 1 winning juvenile hurdler, and he had pretty robust form in juvenile hurdles last year. He's taken a little bit of time to come to the boil, but there is a pot in him. Unfortunately, with these JP horses, though, you never know which one will be on for the day. There is
there's a few in there.
Yeah, no, there's Intukas in there. There's Aramax in there. Both of whom are well touted for the Grand Annual.
Yeah, do you think their target is ultimately the Grand Annual? Because I think Intukas is off 138, Aramax is off 141. They probably wouldn't want to be winning this, would they?
No, not at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Aramax himself wasn't to run. 141's already, I just said, steep enough based off the fact that he's only won a beginners, and he'd probably get another 4 or 5 pounds on top of that in England, which would put him in kind of in the middle of the weights off 145, 146 in a Grand Annual. And Tukas may well run. He looks a bit of an early horse for me, though. An awful lot of 2s and 3s back when he was a maiden hurdler. Now as a novice chaser, I'm not so sure I don't know whether he's going to be laid out for the biggest plot of all time, or whether he just simply doesn't want to get his head in front. So a very hard one to correlate. Look,
I thought he was eye-catching last time, I must say. And out of that race, I did think, I watched Aramax. Aramax ran the same day, didn't he? Or the same weekend. Yeah, I thought that Intukas could be the Grand Annual horse for Joseph. I think I'd be concerned by him. I think he could be maybe a plot job.
Yeah, it's so hard to know, as I say, with these JP horses, trying to pick out which one's going to be on the day, because he's going to rock up in a Grand Annual. He'll have 3 or 4 runners in it.
I suppose you'll find out 5 minutes before the off.
Yeah, there'll be red caps, there'll be yellow caps, there'll be blue caps. The infamous red cap who seems to rock up every now and then in these handicaps. Look, that'll be very hard. My fancy for this race, you've actually mentioned him. I think if he ran in this, the Shunter has a massive chance. He's around 8-9 to 1. Look, off a mark 132, he could be extremely well handicapped. I do realise his hurdle form's better than his chase form, and he'd need to maybe polish up his jumping a little bit more than when he was last over fences in a graded race down in Limerick. But off 132, the possibilities are there. It's a big pot on the weekend, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Emmett Mullins, who's an excellent target trainer, has him ready to go. Moving on to the Irish Champion Hurdle, probably the feature on the Saturday card. Only the 6 entries at forfeit stage, which unfortunately is a little bit of a shame, but only 6 runners, but 6 quality runners at that. What do you think of this race, Josh?
Tricky. I thought it was tricky. Honeysuckle's unbeaten, and I liked her for this last year, and I wanted her to go to the Champion because I thought Cheltenham may suit her maybe even slightly more than Leopardstown because it's more of a stamina test, and her jumping might not come into it too much. She is slow over her hurdles, there's no getting away with it. And the funny thing is I'm going to probably put up a horse purely at the prices that I think could beat her. And he's a horse that I've never got on with. I just think that he could be made for this. And it's Abracadabra. I know he was beaten heavily last time. And no, I feel bad doing this because I don't despise the horse, but do you know one of those horses where you have a conversation or a conflict with someone early on in their career, and from that moment you cannot back that horse regardless. I think it was a bit like Altior for me. My stepdad backed Altior in the Supreme. I was on Min. I think it was the first time I went to the festival, and from then I never really took to Altior, purely because you know.
It was Apple's Jade for me was the one. I could never get her. I backed her, I'd say, twice in her career, and she got turned over odds on in a mare's hurdle. And I backed her once as well, I think, in the 3 mile hurdle at Aintree, was it, where if the cap fits, nailed her on the line. And those were the only 2 times I backed her. Went against her, I'd say 12 times. She won 10 or 11 grade 1s on me.
I completely get it. And Abracadabras is one of those horses for me. I fancy him in this. I don't know why. I just think he's good around Leopardstown. He's got good form around there. And it wouldn't surprise me if he does bounce back from his last run. It's painful for me to say, I must say, but Honeysuckle, I think she's better over 2.5, purely because her jumping doesn't come into it as much. I'd probably fancy her in the Champion Hurdle this year. I know that sounds silly not to back her at the weekend, but Abracadabras for me. What about you?
Yeah, look, I can't believe you said Abracadabras. Really, Josh, you're daggering me.
I'm going to hang my head in shame. It'll either look like a masterstroke or
yeah. This was like coming into this time last year, as we were alluding to earlier. Josh was all over Chacun Pour Soi for the champion chase all the year through. He's telling me about all these anti-post slips. I rock up to do a preview with him, I'd say 10 days before the festival, and he stares at me and says Defi de Soy's going to beat him. And I had my head in my hands the whole day. It actually ruined my trip to London.
It's a case, you must have had this as well, where you look at a race for that long, you end up changing your mind 6 or 7 times. You question yourself and maybe sometimes don't look into it that deep and just go with your gut. But Abracadabras. I'm sorry, Andrew.
Yeah, well, I'll forgive you because, as I say, you can't unfortunately rule a horse like him out, and you can't look at that Christmas run. Gordon's weren't running too great. There's no getting away from that. The likes of Ballyadam underperformed, Delta Work unseated. Look, they'll be much better than that in time. I don't really want to go against Honeysuckle because I've spent my life going against Honeysuckle and spent my life getting egg in my face because of it. Look, I was quite sweet at the start of the season on Saint-Ouen for the Champion Hurdle. It looked a masterstroke after he won at Tipperary. I backed him at 20s. He was down to 7s. Everyone was talking about him. He's now back out to 14s or something. He'd need to show a bit. Look, he's 6-7-1. I know it's only a 6-runner race, you're only getting 2 places. Might be worth a couple of quid each way. I wouldn't be massively opposing the favourite. I'd probably take on Sharjah. He does love that Christmas race, as it has had troubles in the past backing performances up though, and his record at this Dublin Racing Festival is absolutely brutal. They really fancied him to beat Sam Crow as a novice hurdler. He was absolutely pants that day, and he's been beaten twice now well in the Irish Champion Hurdle as well. So I couldn't really be having him, I must say, especially at 2-1. Honeysuckle probably the most likely winner. I'd probably have a couple of quid each way on Saint-Ouen, but that's a bit of a heart overhead selection.
Does it concern you that we've only seen her once this season, or not at all?
Yeah, it's very hard to know because there's very few other races that she could have ran in, to be fair. Like the Hatton's Grace comes in December. They opted to go there fresh rather than getting a prep run in like they did last year. This has been the target ever since. I'd just be disappointed. I was disappointed with her jumping in the race last year. I think an awful lot of people had this idea that she might win the race, like Apple's Jade won the race a couple of years previous and routed them. And she ended up kind of clinging on from Darver Star and Petit Mouchoir. And I think the race has maybe a little bit more depth this year. She also just clung on to beat Ronald Pump over 2.5 miles in the Hatton's Grace. Ronald Pump would need more than 2.5, I'd have thought. I know she'll come on for that run. As I say, I wouldn't be strongly against her because she's a horse I keep going against and keep failing to do so. But I just know for a fact it will be Apple's Jade syndrome. If I stood here and told the viewers Honeysuckle's a cert, it would be the day she loses her unbeaten record.
Yeah, typical, wouldn't it? Let's move on to the 2 mile handicap hurdle, a Grade B contest next. Do you like anything in this? I've got 2 things that I do want to say. In fact, I'll say it first. I'd like Seal Den Age to win it, 10-1 for Willie Mullins. 6-year-old improving. off the mark over hurdles last time out, and I think he's ran incredibly in big handicaps. He finished second to Pick Dory at Newbury last year, and I think there is a big handicap hurdle in this, and I think he's got plenty. My personal feeling is I think he's got plenty in hand long term. I think he's going to prove to be a better horse than he currently rated. And the other horse, which I'm not sure if this is a wise guy's horse, or I'm pretending to be a wise guy, but I quite like Blue Sari. Not to back in this race, but to see how he runs. He's been off for 370 days, but he was second in that champion bumper, which Envoy Allen won. Time Hill was third. Abracadabras was in behind. That's a serious bumper. And I've actually taken the 25-1 non-runner no bet on him in the county hurdle. He's lightly raced. If he got back to his best, he'd be winning off 140, put it that way. And Connections won the race last year. JP and Willie won it with Saint Roir. Different type of horse, obviously not ideal coming off for such a long break, and he was really disappointing in that race behind Asterion Forlonge 12 months ago. But I just think that he is classy, and if he can regain that form, I actually messaged Patrick Mullins about this. I said, I've got to know, will he run, and what's the target? And he said, no specific target at the moment, but he's great, and we're really looking forward to seeing him back on course. So maybe, I think he's currently 25-1 non-runner no bet. For me personally, if he run, he's only going to run in the county if he runs really well here. So non-runner no bet, that makes sense in my opinion. I think you won't lose money. They won't go to the county if he doesn't run well here. So he could be one that sneaks in, and if he could finish third or fourth, that'd be ideal. And hopefully have a nice bet slip for the county hurdle. What about yourself, mate? Yeah, so Blue Sari, what do you think of this, mate?
Yeah, I can definitely see the angle behind Blue Sari. Look, he brings good Grade 1 bumper form to the table. It didn't work out last year over hurdles, but Willie Mullins has kind of galvanised these sort of hurdlers before, and has a good record in the county hurdle, as you say. I wouldn't be backing him on the weekend, as you suggested, but it'd be very interesting to see how he goes. Look, one that's got dual entries on the weekend, he's in this handicap, he's in the Grade 1 novice hurdle. I just can't see him getting beat in the handicap, is Master McShee, and you can currently get 9 or 10-1 available. I think that's a massive price. Off a mark 143, I think he was fairly treated at being put up £9 for his win over course and distance last time out. He beat Sea Ducker by 5 lengths. Sea Ducker was 5 lengths clear of third. And I think Sea Ducker doesn't actually, isn't without a chance in the Betfair hurdle at Newbury next week. He's around 20-1 for that, or in 2 weeks' time as we're recording this. But I think that's very strong form in the book. He comes in here, as I say, off 143, and I think if he takes the handicap route, I think he's got a massive chance. And if he goes and wins this, you might see him being supplemented for the likes of a Supreme Novices hurdle. You'd think he'd be probably too far up for the county hurdle. It's obviously a very small trainer in Paddy Corkery, so maybe he won't even go to Cheltenham. Maybe he'll just try and pick up pots over in Ireland, go to Fairyhouse, go to Punchestown, and maybe steal the prize of a Grade 1 novice hurdle at Punchestown. Maybe that's the plan, I'm not so sure. But I think he'd have a massive chance in this off 143, and I think he's actually got an each-way chance in the Grade 1 on the Sunday if they decide to go down that route on the weekend.
I can definitely see the appeal. It's now time for the Appreciate It bumper time. If you didn't know, me and Andrew were there last year. Andrew goes, Appreciate It, will win. I followed him in, and Appreciate It absolutely sluiced up. Did he get us out of trouble?
A little bit, yeah, because I hadn't backed anyway, Honeysuckle for the Irish champion hurdle, and just coming to the end of the day, as everyone will know, a winner in the lucky last, like whether you've had a good day or a bad day, a winner in the bumper that absolutely hacks up as well. You come away from the races thinking you're Billy Big Balls. I walked in to the Bulmers tent afterwards to see you and your friends. I was striding in 10 foot tall, telling everyone all day this horse would win, and he duly obliged.
It kicks off the night then, doesn't it? The night out. The best lucky last I had, I told everyone that Wild About Oscar would win the bumper on New Year's Eve at Warwick last year. I told everyone, and I was so convinced, and he went there and he won very nicely. I don't think I'd backed a winner all day, and he got me out of jail. So luckily for me, that happened. But it is time for the bumper. Interesting one. So we're going to do two sort of previews for this, because I was told this week that Sir Gerhard, the favourite for the race, is out. He's got a leg infection. He'll miss this, but will make it for Cheltenham easily. So I think if Sir Gerhard's out, I think Kilcroot is a machine. He was very impressive. He moved from Tony Mullins to Willie. I think the brother Wink, maybe. We've got a good one here. Wink, wink. You take him. He's got the same connections as Appreciated, the same owner, and I think he just makes sense. He won so impressively last time. You've got to look at the champion bumper market. Out of Gordon's got a few in there. I think Chemical Energy is probably his best chance. But Sir Gerhard, if he runs, I'd back Sir Gerhard purely for the Envoy Allen, a nostalgic feel. But yeah, I think he's out. Don't quote me on this, but I believe he is out. The source that I got it from was very reliable, and got it straight from the owners. So I don't know.
You'd have to.
What can you do? What, you expect him to be scratched and he's not?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening sometimes. I see now also this week, I've been looking through entries over in England, and there's horses coming out of retirement. I thought Shantou Flyer had been retired, Cogri retired. They're all returning. Geez, nobody's retired these days. So God knows what's going to happen.
We'll make this quick, right? Who do you fancy in this if Sir Gerhard is running?
Sir Gerhard.
If he's not running?
I'd take a chance on Gavin Cromwell's Let's Be Clear About It, who was actually second to Sir Gerhard last time out. I don't think Kilcroot will run now. I've got no evidence for that. I just know they've talked many times about him being a kind of quite a racy type of horse. He doesn't need actually that much racing. Wouldn't surprise me if they skipped this and just went straight to the champion bumper. That being said as well, if I was to pick even between Kilcroot and Ramillies of Willie Mullins, I'd pick Ramillies. I think they think he's an absolute weapon of a horse. He was backed off the boards 14 months ago at Christmas 2019, it would have been, on Stephen's Day, and he really disappointed. We didn't see him for a year. Then he absolutely hacked up this Christmas at Leopardstown by 10 or 12 lengths. I think they think an awful lot of him, obviously, in the Donnelly Silks. Kilcroot has to come in with a mention, but Let's Be Clear About It, I think you're going to get a bit of a better price than maybe some of these other horses, because it's Gavin Cromwell. He does have very good form, and I thought at Navan, I must say, he had Sir Gerhard at it a long way from home. Sir Gerhard's class, it was a little bit Envoy Allen stuff. His class kind of got him through the race, but I think Let's Be Clear About It travelled like a really, really good horse, and I'd give him a chance. I think you might get an each-way price about him, instead of maybe having to go in on a very short price with a Willie Mullins horse. And I think that form with Sir Gerhard is as strong as you're going to get, and maybe a little bit better ground as well might see this horse to better effect. He won on kind of soft ground back in October time when he beat Enniskerry Barry Connell. So he's one maybe to keep in mind, but you'd have to think with the vibes you get about this Sir Gerhard, you don't want to build him up, because we all built Ballyadam up and he obviously disappointed at Christmas, and I think these horses are unfairly built up, but you've got to be excited at the same point, and you'd really hope he could be a very good horse going forward. And maybe if he ran in this, if he's gotten over that leg infection, he runs in this and wins and won a champion bumper, you'd have to think, what could happen next year over hurdles, and maybe in a couple of years over fences. What
price would he be for the Ballymore?
Oh, geez, he must be in at 6-1 favourite if he won a champion bumper. But I wouldn't be. It seems to be everyone's big thing this year to be backing horses for 2022 in Cheltenham. It's hard enough backing horses for this year. I see people waving around Bob Ballinger, RSA slips, Brave Man's Game 2024 Gold Cup slips. Can we just back horses this year?
It's almost as if they're definitely going to get there as well. And they're definitely going to win their intended races this year. I think it's bonkers backing them a year in advance. That being said, I did back Chacun Pour Soi for the champion chase last year. So quite contradicting there. Let's move on to day two. The first it's the mare's handicap hurdle, isn't it? And Willie Mullins has got plenty at the top of the market in this. I'm going to go with the Joseph O'Brien horse called Global Equity, who I think could be well handicapped off a low 120s mark. I think there is a big handicap, or maybe not a big handicap, but this is the handicap I think for her. And I think she comes here with a really good chance. And could maybe upset some of the Willie Mullins battalion.
Yeah, but look, I wouldn't put you off that. I thought that Dicer Diamond might be a little bit skimpy at the top of the market for this. I thought it was a funny race at Christmas that she won. They went very quick in front, kind of fell into her lap a little bit. The one I'd give you two actually at decent enough prices if they ran. I'd give a chance to Mrs. Milner for Paul Nolan. She actually went over to Cheltenham at the November meeting and just got touched off by On the Blind Side, who's obviously a very good horse in his day for Nicky Henderson. She then came fourth in a Pertemps qualifier, drops back 5 furlongs in trip for this race if she ran in it. I know she's also declared in the 3 mile handicap hurdle on Sunday. I think she'd have a chance in either. And also the Getaway Star for the Queelies. She's been a little bit disappointing this year over hurdles, but she had listed form as a bumper horse last year, and she comes in here off a favourable mark. I think she might be a little bit overpriced. I think you can get 12 to 1 about her. I don't think she's entered in any other race over the 2 days as well, which is always a nice thing to see. And I think she could go well on handicap debut.
So a couple of big prices in the first. I think Global Equity is 16 to 1. So hopefully we can get off to a flyer on the Sunday. The next race, the Spring Juvenile Hurdle, I think this could be my nap of the weekend. Quilixios for Gordon Elliott, 5 to 4. There's not much juice in the price. I just think he's going to win. I think he's very, very good. I don't think there's too much difference in ability compared to Zana here. I think the vibes from the yard are that they don't really know which one's particularly best. I think that the Triumph Hurdle market would tell you there's a big difference, but I really don't think that is the case. I think that he's got speed. I think he stays. I think he jumps so well for a juvenile, and he could be made for the Triumph Hurdle. So I think I'd expect him to win this. And if he's got Grade 1 form, you've got to look at the Triumph. I think he's around 8 to 10 to 1 at the moment. If he wins at the weekend, he's not going to be that with a Grade 1 on his CV. He'd probably be 4 to 1, 3 to 1 second favourite. So if you're going to look at this race and you don't want to get stuck into the 5 to 4, looking at the anti-post markets for the Cheltenham Festival and hoping that he wins could be the angle. You've got to look at a few in behind. Bustleton, Saint Sam for the Boodles. Do you want these horses finishing anywhere near Quilixios really, if they're going to have a realistic chance? Because if they get too close, a bit like a Wave of the Sea last year, or was it last year? It was last year. That scuppered his plans to run in the Boodles, and you do not want that to happen again. So Bustleton, Saint Sam. Also, I do want to point out, I really quite like Palm Beach for the Boodles. I brought this up on Twitter. I think he's 25 to 1. I've got a feeling he's almost a bit of a Wave of the Sea, and Joseph doesn't want to put him in one of these just in case he does finish second or third and his mark does go sky high. So he could be one interesting for the Boodles. But Quilixios, nat material in my eyes. Do you agree?
Not a race I'd be having a mad opinion on, really. I'd give a chance if he was to turn out again to Umdor, I think, at 5 to 1. I thought he'd have beaten Teupo last time at Gordon Elliott.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best form on offer in this race in terms of what they've actually achieved. I understand both Quilixios and French Seal maybe have more scope for improvement, perhaps, but they haven't beaten too much and they're skimpy enough to be getting involved in. I know, if you're obviously on the likes of these horses for the Triumph Hurdle, you'd want to be seeing them go and win. I'm not a big fan of this French Seal at all. I've said that a couple of times. I just have a few notions. I know the form got a little bit of a boost last week with Coltor winning at Nace, but the rest of the form in that race is absolutely dismal. And I thought it was just one of those ones. It was almost too good to be true. I don't know. He could be an absolute superstar, and I could be completely barking up the wrong tree. But you've seen sometimes horses win juvenile hurdles by 20 lengths, and then they get stuffed next time out. So I'm just not so sure about him. Quilixios is similar enough. He's won really impressively, but he hasn't beaten anything in the process over in Ireland, that's for sure. He's 5 to 4. Wouldn't be for me getting involved. If Umdor was to run, I'd back him. If Umdor wasn't there and they maybe just waited for the Triumph with him be a race, I'd be willing to have just a watching brief in and see where things lie. I think Zanaheer's still Zanaheer's the standard bearer of form at the moment.
Yeah. I've got a feeling Zanaheer is almost the Triumph Hurdle horse of this year, but moving forward longer term, Quilixios could turn out to be a better horse and have more longevity throughout his career. We'll move on to the Chanel Palmer Novices Hurdle over 2 miles. I think there's going to be no surprise. We finally get our moment. Appreciate it. I've looked at this race. I looked at the Supreme Novice Hurdle and I wanted to find an alternative because I thought the price at Appreciate It is, and given the 7-year-olds have got very a poor record in the race. I tried to find an alternative, and I've now convinced and landed on Appreciate It wins the Supreme with a strong, aggressive ride from the front from Paul Townend, and he just gets the job done. I think he's got too much class. It's such a weak division. You've got to look at the English. Third time lucky runs at Musselburgh this weekend. Appreciate It wouldn't be within 100 miles of Musselburgh. He's that classy. He just, no, not for me. No offence to anyone that goes to Musselburgh races, but he's just different level. And I think he's going to win this, and I think he's going to win the Supreme. Hard to work out his biggest danger. Ballyadam, if he's back to his best, Blue Lord looked like that he'd appreciate the step down in trip when second to Bob Ollinger over 2.5 last time. Tricky one. Appreciate It wins, Andrew, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I can't make my mind up about Appreciation. There's some people that just love crabbing him, and I kind of can't understand why. You know, he got pickpocketed in the bumper last year by Fernie Hollow, who's potentially a superstar horse. Obviously, such a shame he's out of the division because he'd have given it an added boost. But apart from that, the horse has been absolutely flawless. And he devoured a strong field over Christmas. The form's working out. Horse the Devil's Coachman, who was beaten 20 lengths for Noel Meade, who's probably a Grade 2, Grade 1 horse in his own right. He won next time out last week at Naas as well. So I just can't see what's wrong with him. Ones I'd give each way mentions to maybe in this race. As I say, if Master McShee went for this race, I'd give him an each way chance. And maybe one to just keep an eye on as a lurker in the Supreme is Kescon Risk for Joseph O'Brien. I know a lot of people think quite highly of him. He ran an encouraging race over Christmas, given Joseph's horses ran okay, but have improved since Christmas, let's just put it that way. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was to upgrade that form a bit more, but I think he's got an awful lot of work to do to turn the tables with Appreciate It. And I know a lot of people are prepared to give Ballyadam a second shot. I can see why, you can always forgive a horse one bad run. His jumping's just not good enough, though, and the form of that Royal Bond at Fairyhouse isn't good enough either. Ngolo was up his arse that day, and that's not good enough.
Could you see him improving for a step up in trip?
No, I could see him improving for a better hurdling technique. I think he's a 2-miler through and through. Personally speaking, I think he's got the gears. The fact he won the Royal Bond despite jumping deplorably would indicate he's got the gears. But God, you just can't jump like that in these 2-mile novice hurdles and get away with it, especially in a Supreme. You'd have to be some serious horse to be jumping the way he does and get away with it. And stepping up to 2.5 miles, you have to look at it this year. Geez, you're stepping into a much harder division when you're thinking of Brave Man's Game, Bob Ollinger, Gallard de Menil, maybe even Blue Lord if they keep going down that route. Well, that's a much stronger division depth-wise than this Supreme. As you say, this Supreme looks... It looks pretty average for as Supremes go, and I think Appreciate It's just a solid, rock solid horse with plenty of ability, and I find it hard to look past him.
Interesting, both with Appreciate It, and fingers crossed they can get the job done. Let's move on to the 3-mile handicap hurdle downtown getaway. I quite like. Move from Nicky's to Willie's, 8-1. I think each way. I think he's a really interesting horse because he came over from Ireland. He won a bumper incredibly impressively. Never really hit the heights that we expected him to hit at Nicky's, albeit won some races. I remember the win at Kempton was quite eye-catching. You'd like to see him kick on then, but he didn't. Changed hands to Willie Mullins. I know that the owners have got Tornado Flyer there, and he's an expensive purchase. It wouldn't surprise me if Willie can eke out a bit of improvement. And I thought he's entered in a few races. If he does run here, I think I'd side with him on the chance that he can improve because he's not a bad horse in his own right. And 8-1 each way I could see him placing. The other one that I thought had a good chance was Damalisk at the top of the market, 5-1. He's favourite. I think the cat's out of the bag. He won impressively recently. I think he'd be my second best for the race. Andrew, do you have a strong opinion in this? It's tricky. It's competitive.
Yeah, it's a hard one, and also you do have to bear in mind with some of these handicap hurdles which horses are going to maybe be, have Cheltenham on the radar, and which horses are going to have Sunday on the radar, and sometimes it's prudent to side with the smaller trainer, I suppose. Damalisk for Eddie Hardy, I'd love him to win for Eddie Hardy. Obviously, I'm in a racing club that we have a horse of a much lower grade, unfortunately, than Damalisk. But it'd be great to see.
There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't speak to Harry Drew about it.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Like, you're trying to get owners into the game, and I'm absolutely loving it. We've got 3 or 4 horses running, as obviously you guys have as well. And you found with Under La Senière, when you have a winner, you couldn't care less where it is. Like,
no,
it's a decent price, a great day. You get a framed photo. Jeez, it's happy days. Like. But anyway, back to Eddie Hardy. Would love to see him have a big winner with Damalisk. The one though I'm really keen on in this is Unexpected Depth for Ollie McKiernan. Now, I don't know why Ollie McKiernan's not been in contact with me, because I could do his PR for him free of charge. I do it on Twitter every week. But his horses are in really good nick at the moment. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy with Aaron's Day there at Naas on Sunday, who ran a stormer. This horse is one of the best horses he has in the yard, I think. Between him and Gallant John Joe are probably his 2 best. And he's off a mark 141, was a close third behind the Bosses Oscar and Dandy Mag in the Pertemps qualifier. But maybe unlike those horses, 60 grand to the winner on Sunday would be absolutely massive for a trainer like Ollie McKiernan. It would surprise me if he's there, plotting plans further down the line. I'd say this horse will be there to run really well. He's around 7-8 to 1. I think he's got a massive chance.
Interesting. I know when you've got your eye on one and you're that bullish, take note. I'm bigging you up there. Happy with that?
Yeah, unless it's Bob Hope or no hope for Kim Bailey. I'm sorry to everyone. I really hope the horse is okay, because I talked non-stop about him for a week and then he pulled up. But
yeah,
these
maybe not around Doncaster.
Yeah, these things happen. Heavy ground, you can't win them all, I suppose. But look, it's hopefully going to be a decent one for Unexpected Depth. He's a horse I do like an awful lot. Moving on to the Flowgas Novice Chase.
A horse that you like. You've got another one here.
Oh, geez,
got 2.
Yeah, at least to be fair, Latest Exhibition wins races. An awful lot of my Cliff horses win no races. But it's Monkfish and Latest Exhibition again, 1-2 in the Neville Hotels race at Christmas time, both stepping back down to 2-5.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be suiting either of them, really?
No, I don't.
No.
I think it's a weird one. It's quite interesting that this meeting doesn't have a 3-mile novice chase. I think if it would, it'd be the obvious trial. I think they probably don't, because they want to spread them out, especially with qualifying for the 4-miler or the National Hunt Chase at the Cheltenham Festival, and they want to have big horses go to slightly smaller tracks. Monkfish stepping down in trip. I don't want to say he's vulnerable, but I don't think he's in his optimum conditions. Likewise, the Latest Exhibition. Could we see a different race, or do you think it's just they're going to go hard and Latest Exhibition and Monkfish will come out from the pack?
I'd say I can't see past these two. I think they're really super horses, and I think on slightly better ground as well. The thing that will probably get them away with this step down in trip is their jumping, especially Monkfish's jumping. It's absolutely electric.
He's an absolute warrior, isn't he?
He's an absolute monster over a fence. Like his jumping display at Christmas time, like him and Latest Exhibition, to be fair, like it was an absolute burn up of a race in a pretty solid grade 1 at that. And they pulled miles clear, jumping, and they're these two horses that they love just kind of throwing digs at each other. It's like a boxing match. Brian Cooper was there at 2 out. He tried to deck Paul Townend with a little uppercut. Paul Townend weaves out of the way. He goes back on again. Like, it's absolute box office television. I think there'll be 1-2 in this race, and will be 1-2 in the RSA. But unfortunately for me, I do probably think Latest Exhibition will be second in both. But if he would win, I know you don't want. I'm a big advocate of not wanting really good horses to lose, and Monkfish is a really good horse. But if Monkfish lost and Latest Exhibition beats them on Sunday, Twitter will go quiet, absolutely quiet, and there will be me in the corner, fist in the air.
I think not just that, but if Latest Exhibition does win and does beat him, and if it's close, it could set up such a fascinating RSA as well. And going into it, I think it would be you versus the racing world with who's going to win that contest. Interesting, the step down in trip. I don't have a massive opinion. I think Monkfish is a better horse and will be a better horse down the line. I think he's a proper Gold Cup horse. You'd have to look next year at a potential Gold Cup winner, but tricky one. I'm not going to get stuck into that. I think it's a tricky race, and it'll just be a watching brief. We'll move on to the Irish Gold Cup. I think we could be potentially in an agreement here. I really like Delta Work. Now, I liked him at Christmas. I think he's 4-1, 9-2. Gordon said that Jack Kennedy is key, and he is so right. Jack Kennedy is key. All of his best performances have been with Jack Kennedy on his back. I don't know what it is. I'm not massively convinced with Manila Indo at the moment. He's won races. They seem like Tim Pot graded races, and I just think that Delta Work. I think he's going to be one of those horses. I couldn't back him in a Gold Cup. I thought he'd win the Gold Cup last year. I've let that ship sail. I couldn't back him in the Gold Cup this year. I think he's going to be a horse that's going to consistently win Grade 1s over in Ireland, but never really step up at Cheltenham. And for me, I think he'll win on Sunday. Mellon won't stay, in my opinion. They're going to try and hold him up slightly more. I don't think that's going to count. I think he's got a huge chance going from the front in the Ryanair at the Cheltenham Festival, and really a big, bold, attacking ride. And Kenboy, do you know what I mean? It's tricky. It's tricky. Yeah, Delta Work for me. I think 4-1, 9-2 is value, given he won the race last year, given he's got a great record around Leopardstown as well. So Delta Work.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Look, I think he's...
There we go.
He finally. It's taken 45 minutes or so, and we finally got one on the board between the two of us. Delta Work, I think he's a 5-2 chance with Jack Kennedy on his back. If Jack Kennedy wasn't on his back, I wouldn't take 50-1 in this race about him, to be honest. That's how key he is. Because with any other jockey, he seems to not be able to jump for peanuts. And yet for Jack Kennedy, he barely ever makes a mistake.
You're going to be on Jack Kennedy watch this weekend then, hoping he doesn't fall on anything.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, he's I think he's got a massive chance. Look, Manila Indo, I'd be a little bit more positive than yourself. I do think he is a very good horse. But he's coming back off a heavy enough fall, which was uncharacteristic, but still not ideal. And to be honest, if he has any chance in the Gold Cup, he does have to win this race, I believe. Like, he just simply has to go and do it. And I wouldn't be just overly convinced he will. Kenboy, hard to quantify. That run in the Savills was his first piece of meaningful form in 2 years or so, and I'd be with you. I think Mellon, probably at Christmas, it was maybe a little bit inconclusive whether he stayed or not, but you'd have to go 60-40, he didn't stay, and I think that would be similar enough. And also, I think he's probably best from the front, where you make use of his jumping. He's a great jumper of a fence. So, as you say, maybe that's something for a Ryanair come March time. But a race, I wouldn't have a massive say in, but if you're pinning me for a selection, and the bet I will have, it would be Delta Work at the prices. I think he's just a little bit overpriced.
Up the Delta Work, 4-1, 9-2, get on. 2 miles and 5 furlong handicap chase up next. Tricky one. I think it's competitive. I quite like Fitzhenry for Paul Nolan at 16-1 each way. I think he's got a good each way chance. I think he was unlucky in the race last year, and he goes round so well at Leopardstown. Farkless, interesting. I thought he would suit the step down in trip. Do you think they've got eyes on the Cheltenham Festival with him? I can't work it out. Yeah,
very hard to know, because Cocoa Beach has come into the mix as well. I thought Farkless was going to be their Ultima horse. I know Gordon wouldn't run too many in an Ultima, but maybe Farkless will now go Brown Advisory, I'm not sure. But I think with a horse of his class, where you do genuinely think there's a handicap in him, it would somewhat surprise me whether that would be on Sunday. But that being said, Gordon's got to try win, prize money for the Trainers' Championship in Ireland, so he just have to try and pick out these handicaps. I'd be with you. I think it's a mad open field. You can make a case for an awful lot. I backed the Long Mile down in Limerick when he won the Tim Duggan over Christmas, really impressively. He's gone up, I think, £10 as a result, or £12, I believe it is, for Philip Dempsey, but I think he's still got a decent chance in improving horse. I also quite liked Fitzhenry, but that being said, people that know me well know that I'd back a Paul Nolan horse, whether it was a 180 rated horse or a 60 rated horse. So that's maybe a little bit biased, but I do think he's got a chance, £2 lower than last year. And if he crept in at the Acorn each way, he's a horse I quite liked for the race last year.
I think I've heard you say that name 50 million times.
Geez. Between At the Acorn and The Mouse Doctor for Tony Martin, jeez, he's killing me, Tony. Tony has to throw me a bone at some stage, and At the Acorn may just be the one.
There we go. So Fitzhenry for me. And Andrew's gone through the field for his selections. We'll go for the final mare's bumper to finish us off. It's a Grade 2 contest. I'm with the favourite here, Brandy Love for Willie Mullins. I'm not massively convinced there's too much between the favourite and the second favourite. I just think Brandy Love had already been touted up for the Mares' Novice Hurdle next year. I think she could be a really, really smart horse, and if she is, you've got to expect her to win. It's a tricky one, isn't it, with these races? Because plenty come into them with very impressive debuts, winning by 8 lengths, 11 lengths, and it's tricky to work out. I just thought Brandy Love, and the time was very good last time out as well.
Yeah, I'd be with you as well. It wouldn't be a race I'd have a massive play in, to be honest. These mares' bumpers can often throw up a tricky enough result, but Brandy Love looked to be really impressive on debut. Obviously was a point-to-point winner, and she is very well touted at the same time, so you'd have to take all that on board. One I'd certainly keep an eye on, maybe not back, as a horse called Hollymount, who actually made her debut for Stuart Crawford up in Carlisle with Brian Hughes riding her. Won very, very impressively.
Brian Hughes needed to get in somewhere.
Yeah, gee, well, we were around an hour in, Brian Hughes, no mention. But won by 8 or 9 lengths, has subsequently been bought by the Morans for 300,000 at the January sale in Doncaster. Now obviously in those silks and trained by Gordon Elliott. Very interesting to see how she runs. She looked very smart. Hard to know what she beat, obviously, in a Carlisle bumper. They wouldn't be renowned to be the strongest going about, but she might be an interesting one. But Brandy Love for me, I think if the hype is if she's as good as even half the hype, she'd take a fair bit of beating in this.
Absolutely. Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have a brilliant weekend, although we both won't be there, and it's going to be a bit gutting. But if you are watching it on TV, have a brilliant time, and make sure that you do let us know which horses that you fancy down below. A massive thank you for all the support on the first video. Hopefully we can kick on from here, and this becomes a regular feature of your week as well, watching us and enjoying the journey. If you've got any questions for us, please do get them down below. Please like the video. If we could try and hit 100 likes, I know we hit it 100 likes last year, and I know that's pushing the boundaries a little bit, but if we could, that'd be absolutely brilliant. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you after the Dublin Racing Festival. Shall we do a review?
We might as well.
We may as well do a review towards Cheltenham. What are we going to be backing at the festival? It's such an exciting period, and best of luck for the weekend.